Ukraine as an obstacle to peace, how Russian TV explains the failure of talks with the US. The latest episodes of the Russian program 60 Minutes have been devoted to one main theme: an attempt to create a new picture of the events surrounding the Ukraine negotiations for their audience. In this version of events, the US is supposedly ready to reach a deal with Moscow. The EU is obstructing peace, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy personally is the main obstacle to ending the war. 1. Zelenskyy is the main target, from intransigence to accusations of undermining negotiations. The segment begins with the thesis that Ukraine is sabotaging US peace initiatives. The Russian TV presenter claims that American representatives allegedly demanded that Kyiv agree to Russian terms even before Trump's conversation with Zelenskyy. Ukraine defied Washington by refusing to discuss territorial concessions. Zelenskyy refuses to read or distorts the American plan, and his intransigence makes peace impossible. This scheme is important. Russian propaganda seeks to create the illusion that the US and Russia have almost reached an agreement, and the Ukrainian leader is the only one preventing the war from ending. The corruption motive also plays a significant role. Zelenskyy is once again accused of having a personal interest in prolonging the conflict. He's looking for European money. He's trying to steal Russian assets. He's afraid of losing power. Ukrainian government sources told Access that the Americans are trying to sell them on Russian terms and demanding Kyiv's agreement even before a phone meeting with Trump. But Zelenskyy, with the Europeans' backing, is defying Washington. After a meeting in London with the leaders of Great Britain, France, and Germany, Zelenskyy reiterated that there will be no territorial concessions. Macron declared a whole deck of cards against Moscow. Trump, in response, agreed with the points of a poisonous New York Post article, which described Europeans as impotent and impotent. Trumpists in Congress are demanding the withdrawal of $400 million allocated to Kyiv next year. Former White House strategist Steve Bannon, in an interview with the American Conservative, calls for going further and depriving Ukraine not only of funds, but also of weapons and intelligence. Whitaker, the US ambassador to NATO, suggests that if Zelenskyy does not accept the American terms, Trump will turn around and leave, abandoning them to their fate. All the details in our report. 2. Rethinking the US role. Washington is allegedly tired of Ukraine. The next layer is an attempt to portray the US as the party that demands that Kyiv cede all of Donbass, is disappointed with Zelenskyy, is ready to completely cut off military aid. They views leaving the conflict as a rational step. Quotes from American politicians, congressmen, and former diplomats are cited, often taken out of context or from marginal figures, to create the impression of a unified opinion in Washington. Former White House strategist Steve Bannon's calls to deprive Ukraine of money, weapons, and intelligence are presented as part of a general trend, even though Bannon has long had no influence on American policy. Retired generals and former officials are being used as proof that the US is pivoting from supporting Kyiv to making an agreement with Moscow. 3. Europe as Moscow's main enemy. The way Russian TV portrays the European Union is particularly revealing. According to Skobeva's logic, the EU patronizes Zelenskyy and pushes him to abandon territorial concessions. European leaders are deceiving the US, convincing Washington that Moscow is to blame for the failure of the negotiations. Europe terribly irritates Trump. European states are aggressive and stupid, yet powerless. The broadcast cites a New York Post article calling Europeans impotent, a word deliberately translated by Skobeva as impotent to heighten the humiliating effect. At the same time, the opinions of American right-wing politicians are cited, calling the EU an enemy of the United States a fascist entity, or a globalist project. All of this forms a new propaganda narrative, according to which the United States has realized Europe's futility. The EU is hindering peace with Russia. Europe is divided, hysterical, and incapable of independent decisions. 4. Donbass must be given up, normalizing the Russian position. Particular attention is paid to the territorial issue. The Russian side claims that the United States allegedly supports Moscow's demand for the complete transfer of Donbass. Ukraine must withdraw from the Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson regions. The negotiations are stalled only because Zelenskyy refuses to accept Russia's terms. This is a key point. Moscow is trying to present the annexation of Ukrainian territories as an internationally recognized inevitability and Kyiv's resistance as irrational and harmful.